How about that cigar?
How about that cigar?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Drew Estate Cigar Studios for episode 166 of How About That Cigar Live. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. And we want to thank you also if you're listening after the fact on the audio podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening to How About That Cigar Live when you drive down the road, when you work out, whatever it is you do. When you listen to your favorite audio podcast, thank you so much for making us a part of that. And we are here in the Drew Estate Cigar Studios, and let's talk about the new size of the Papi Van Winkle barrel fermented cigar. The all-new Corona Viva 5 3/4 by 46 Vitola is launching as an exclusive cigar available only at Papi and Company's website, papico.com. A collaboration between the Van Winkle family, owners of Papi and Company, and Drew Estate. Papi Van Winkle barrel fermented cigars pays homage to the legacy of excellence established by Julian Papi Van Winkle in the bourbon world more than a century ago. The Corona Viva's narrow ring gauge accentuates the barrel fermented tobacco presence in the Papi Van Winkle blend, which offers an ultra premium smoking experience with notes of chocolate, coffee, cedar, charred wood with an overall smoky sweetness. The Papi Van Winkle Family Reserve barrel fermented Corona cigars are packaged in 10-count boxes and available exclusively at papico.com. So we are here in the Drew Estate Cigar Studios. You will notice conspicuously that there's some fella who's not here.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Garrett apparently ate gas station sushi again.
Yeah, I heard that's bad for you.
Yeah, I don't think no more gas station sushi for Garrett. He's sick, so he cannot be on the show with us this evening. But we wish him well and hope that he recovers as soon as possible. So real quick, I want to give sort of a in memoriam, rest in peace. Paul Cervino passed away. And Paul Cervino, great American actor, was in Goodfellas, and of course now my mind is going blank with what else he was in, but he was Paulie in Goodfellas. Gotcha. But I also knew him from, so he did this. There was sort of a promotional video that I think it was General Cigar put together this promotional thing in the early mid-90s called The Art of the Cigar. And Paul was like the narrator. He was like the host of this show. Nice. And they had a bunch of, if you watch it, it's like a who's who of early 90s, pop culture people, MTV people, Daisy Fuentes and Dan Cortez, and Paul Cervino was in it. And Giancarlo Esposito, who plays, Gus Fring on Breaking Bad. And he was in so many Spike Lee movies. All these people were, and it was all about cigars. And I, like I said, I think it was some promotional thing that General Cigar put out in the early 90s, but it's still on YouTube. Just go on YouTube, look up The Art of the Cigar and watch it tomorrow. It's really a great fun thing to watch and kind of a throwback to 90s cigar culture. He was just such a presence on screen, and his role in Goodfellas was just incredible. And so he will be missed, definitely. The Major League Baseball power rankings, they updated the power rankings today. I have no idea what they're drinking or smoking over there. Okay. But they put the Twins at number 8. In all of Major League Baseball, they put the Twins at number 8. Is that good or bad? Well, they think the Twins are good because they put them at number 8, but they're just, I don't know what they're thinking putting them there. That makes no sense whatsoever. Speaking who the fuck is Matt Ty? Yeah, exactly. I wish I would have been there for that. That's gonna be we're gonna have to have t-shirts made. That's so sad. Um, so speaking of baseball, I want to give another shout out, and we're going to continue to promote this. Cigars and Baseball is happening in St. Paul, Minnesota on September 8th. It is a fantastic event with wonderful cigars and food from local restaurants, beers from local breweries, and spirits from local distilleries. It's a great time at CHS Field. It's in the pavilion area, and there will be plenty of cigars and drink and food to go around. So go to cigarsandbaseball.com to learn more about how you can support it. And it's all for the Miracle League, which puts together baseball facilities for kids with disabilities, so they have a place to participate in the game of baseball.
And
so
how about that cigar will be there live too, right?
And how about that cigar will be live at Cigars and Baseball again this year, supporting that great charity and everything they're doing. So stay tuned for that. And guys, we have a huge show with a great panel of guests this evening, and I want to get right into it. So let's get into our main event of the evening. And as always, special guests on How About That Cigar Live are brought to you by Corona Cigar Company. Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, the internet's largest and easiest to use virtual cigar store. Corona Cigar Company offers you the finest handmade cigars, humidors, and cigar accessories at the absolute lowest possible price. You'll also find unique and limited cigars containing Florida sun-grown tobacco. As a proud American, president and founder of Corona Cigar Company, Jeff Borshowitz, believed it was possible to bring cigar tobacco farming back to Florida. At Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, you'll find the best selection anywhere in the world of cigars containing this special Florida sun-grown tobacco. If you live in Florida or are just visiting, be sure to visit any of the great Corona Cigar locations in downtown Orlando, Sand Lake, Lake Mary, and also the Davidoff of Geneva Lounge in Tampa. For more info on all of that, please visit coronacigar.com and floridasungrown.com. All right, let's get episode 166 underway. If you would please, let's start out with From Smoke In, from KMA Talk Radio, and number one in your hearts, Honest Abe. Welcome back.
What's up, boys?
How you doing, sir?
I like that little touch. Number one in your hearts.
Number one in your hearts. Absolutely.
Listen, I didn't realize you guys are a Drew Estate studio.
Yes.
You need to talk to Kevin Shahan, man, because you got like 2x4s in the background there, bro.
Oh,
where's all the DE stuff?
You are preaching to the choir, bro.
Seriously. Holy cow.
I'll just say this. I've asked. And
Joe Grow, shame on you, bro. Hook these boys up. Oh my gosh.
Let's just say that I've asked, and I know everybody's busy, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. That was Abe that threw people under the bus, not me.
Kind of my
No, it's all good. So next on the show for this panel of experts this evening, from Half Wheel, please welcome Charlie Monado.
Do you guys need some Drew Estate swag? We have boxes of it. In fact, you guys could have entered a contest.
We could have entered a contest.
We gave away some of the boxes.
You have like a tractor trailer back up to the Half Wheel Studios once a week and drop off Drew
Not
Estate
recently.
swag.
I told Joe to stop sending swag because we ran out of space for it, and that seems to only have encouraged it more.
No, I've just been.
So maybe try that technique.
I've just been looking for signage, to hang on the wall back here, But we'll get
they should
there
have an
eventually.
extra Nika Rustica sign because we decided to give away our swag instead of theirs for at least one of our contests. So.
All right, next on the show from Developing Palates, the cigar surgeon, John McTavish.
What's going on, gentlemen? I also do not have any Drew Estate swag, but my excuse is that I'm further north than you, and apparently that just means that, I'm on the shit list, and that's fine. I don't mind. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Maybe a little bit.
It costs ship stuff to Canada.
I mean, listen, there's 1.5 million packages that travel across the border daily, so I'm pretty sure that that's been figured out a long time ago. I'm not a shipping guy, but it seems like an easy problem to solve.
There you go. And finally, on this guest panel this evening, and let's put our hands together because he's enjoying and celebrating his 50th birthday from Rome Craft to Back, Skip Martin.
The headliner.
The headliner.
John said he was going to sing "Happy Birthday" to him live.
Yeah.
In the pre-show.
No,
So,
what I
Abe,
said was you're going to pay me not to sing live.
Abe, I went to get a bottle of rum and I saw this and it reminded me of you, so I had to.
I still got that empty bottle in my office, buddy.
Just to have, because it has a place in my heart. I got this one just for you.
Love that bottle. Love that bottle.
Skip and I finished the bottle of that, just bullshitting in my office.
Nice.
It started I started a second bottle, I think, if I remember.
Maybe, yeah, we
It's
did.
easy to go through. It doesn't take much before you're like, oh, where'd the bottle go? I thought we had booze. Yeah, I've been there before. Well, before we jump into the conversation, I think I'm going to get my cigar fired up. And Skip, for your birthday tonight here in the studio, Justin and I are smoking the Craft 18.
Nice.
So
The La Campana.
Yes.
Those are smoking really good right now.
We're going to smoke these now, and I'm going to get mine fired up on the I should get this set up here because Justin's going to need to read this.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
When lighting your cigar, it's important to be patient, pay close attention to detail, and focus on the tobacco. In the same way, Steve Saka brings those same qualities to the ultra premium cigars of Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Patience, close attention, and focus on the tobacco are the qualities that Saka and Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust have become known for. From Sombre Mesa to Umbagog, Dunbarton has a blend of fit your palate, your mood, at any occasion. Visit DunbartonCigars.com to learn more.
I'd ask for my money back on that ad.
Yeah, alrighty then.
Wow.
Abe, would you ask for your money back on that ad?
I was just saying, man, we're just not creative enough on KMA to come up with some of these things.
I just want to know if there's a camera under the table for the the ball sack perspective, sponsored by the nutsack cam.
Cold nuts on the tile.
Insert a name here. I don't want to say a name because I would upset someone, but
Nuts.com.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that was one of the stories Saka told us during his interview at the PCA show was that he when he got to the hotel room, he was so hot he stripped down and he sat on the cold tile floor and let his nuts lay on the cold tile floor.
Yeah, I needed that. I needed that visual.
I'm pretty sure Steve doesn't have to sit for that to happen.
Oh.
Well, I can tell you when you get to 50, some things get longer, and
Other things, yeah.
When you for the first time when you actually sit on your nuts, which doesn't sound like it's possible, but when they get caught under your thigh and you actually sit on your own nuts, you start adjusting as you sit down from then on. You never do it twice.
You know you're getting old when you could tell everybody the exact temperature of toilet water.
right. Yeah.
Let's go around and have everybody say what they are smoking and drinking. So, Abe, sadly, we know that you're not smoking with us this evening, but what are you imbibing?
I am indoors in the dining room because of the late hour broadcast. The kids had violin. I had to get home. Anyways, but I am imbibing, doing a little Macallan 15 here, if I can get it there.
Very nice. Very nice. Charlie, what about you?
I'm drinking Kenobi and tonic, and I, just because it's Skip's birthday, I'm smoking what Skip told me is a Cro-Magnon from the sampler release.
Yeah,
So
one of the very first ones.
2009?
Yeah, it's actually from the first box release. It's not from the sample release. It's from 2011 or 12. But still, it's
so
about
not
10 years
an
old.
Adrian's Cro-Magnon.
Right,
A
right,
Cro-Magnon
exactly.
Cro-Magnon.
Very nice.
Thank you, Charlie. I'm honored.
Thank you for the cigar.
And John, what are you smoking and drinking?
Well, I'm started things off because I knew this was going to be a long show with a Howard G. Black Moses and a little bourbon, which normally my go-to would be Scotch, but I figured American show, let's do some American bourbon. But I knew Skippy was going to be on the show, and I made Loomis ferret these up to me. So Neanderthal for dessert right
The
after
HS.
this Black Moses is done. Yeah, we're gonna get lit tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna get crazy. Skip, what are you smoking and drinking?
I'm drinking this bamboo rum and Mexican Coke.
Yeah.
And I'm smoking right now. I'm smoking Mas Igneas, one of Luciano's new cigars from the show.
That's a good cigar.
And I have lined up this new one from Tim Osger, that Luciano also makes, the Bocephus or Bophorus.
I like Bocephus.
Bocephus
Yeah.
is definitely not the name of the cigar.
Yeah,
But it should be.
yeah. Bophorus. I was trying to be facetious. Yeah, so I got that lined up.
That's very cool. I want to jump in kind of, because, and we sort of joked about this last year too, is that, we're really not recapping the trade show, even though, so a little history for people. If you go back to the first time we did this is the third time we've done this Hive Mind thing. And the first time we did it was late July of 2020, and there was no PCA trade show in 2020. So this was sort of meant to be, checking in with sort of the state of the cigar industry, without a PCA trade show. And then last year, since it came pretty close on the heels of the PCA trade show, we said, okay, there's already been a lot of recap shows about PCA and all that, so we're not really going to dive into that. And really the same's true this year. But the floor is open for any and all discussions. I have a list of questions, but if there's something that isn't asked that you want to bring up, by all means, please do it. The first thing I wanted to ask about is sort of it triggers or it springboards off of something that I saw at the PCA from a couple of notable companies. And that is sort of some rebranding, some of representation. Aganorsa Leaf and Illusione are the first two that come to mind, where, their core line stuff, they rebranded and tried to make things more cohesive, I guess, for their retailers and their consumers. So I wanted to, get everybody's perspective on whether or not they think that's a good thing. And what are the pros and cons, for retailers and consumers alike? So Abe, let's start with you.
Well, for some people, it's definitely a good thing. And for some people, it doesn't work as well. But I mean, let's just take it one. Both those two projects you mentioned, Aganorsa and Illusione. I mean, man, it was just hard as a retailer, as a guy who's in the industry ordering the product, to even feel the identity or know the connection of some of those packaging and those boxes, and especially Dion. And I think, I saw Dion's packaging, and I believe my prediction, it's going to be a great move for him, because, if you're following Dion from day one, yeah, you've kind of understand the progression, get everything. But if you're a new cigar smoker who's gotten into it and you're looking at his products on the shelf, it's really hard to know where anything kind of lies. And I think the new branding is going to be optimal for a new audience for Dion and people who may just have been too overwhelmed or confused by it. In fact, I was telling Pete, I'd love to see him do it too. Pete's products, like, I literally have to call him because I don't even know how he'd like it broken down on our website, because I look at other people's website and everybody does it differently, whether it's stuff just made in Miami, whether it's just stuff made in Nicaragua, whether it's just the wrapper. It's got a lot of variations. It's really hard. I believe it's really hard for a consumer to really know what something is sometimes. And he's tried to help out by putting secondary bands and differentiating things to help signify what it is. But I think those are going to be two good moves for both those companies there.
Okay. Charlie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that probably shouldn't hit this microphone again. I'm going to miss the old Illusione branding. I'm maybe not a day one Illusione consumer, but I've been with it pretty early on and certainly kind of understand the brands. But it seemed pretty clear talking to Dion to sort of hop on what Abe just said, that he's trying to get people that are currently not buying Illusione for any number of reasons to start buying Illusione. And this will be one way to sort of organically or force it upon some of these people to reconsider that. I would also throw Ashton in there. They've done a pretty substantial rebrand on La Armada Cuba. where they're not doing as significant as the Aganorsa Leaf complete renaming, repackaging, everything, but some subtle imagery changes, but more to the point, standardizing the boxes, which Abe can talk about how it's not great to have not only different size boxes and also inefficient size boxes where there's, say, one row of 10 cigars, but also getting it so that those box count numbers are consistent within each line. So that way when Abe's people are doing e-commerce stuff, it's not a complete pain in the ass trying to figure out, is this a 20 count box, a 21 count box, a 25 count box? And then somebody in the chat mentioned Artista just, sort of said we're doing at least a company rebrand, maybe not so much a product rebrand.
Yeah. Yeah, and theirs was it was really, like you said, a company rebrand. I mean, there's a little tweak to one of the lines. I believe it's the Buffalo 10 that a super minor tweak to what the bands look like. Otherwise, everything's identical. But Skip, what do you think? Because I'll be honest, I joked with Fred about this after our interview. I said I was just getting it all figured out with the Illusione stuff. So, Skip, what do you think about the presentation on the shelf?
I mean, when we first launched our brand, my genius idea was to have no boxes, no bands, everything comes in unbanded bundles, and that this was going to be revolutionary. So obviously that didn't work out. What I'll tell you is when we decided to start using packaging designed for kind of the retail presence, we put a lot of thought and effort into this idea of a house of brands, right? Where if there's a section in a humidor, you can tell that's Roma. Even it can still stay simple and substantial, but it's different enough where you can differentiate one from the other if you're a little bit engaged in the brand. But at the same time, you all know what it is. That look and feel is our house of brands. And I think some people in our business are good at marketing. Some people are good at graphic design. Some people are good at sales. Some people are good at tobacco. And there's a lot of guys that started out kind of their way. They started out with one line and it turned into 30 lines. And then at some point they have to kind of group it all back together. I'm with Charlie on original documents. Like, I've always been a fan of those cigars, from the tobacco all the way through to the simple packaging. I loved the idea that you can enjoy the cigar knowing it's all kind of from the same house of brands. You can enjoy the cigar without knowing what the letters on the band meant, but that once you really got involved in the brand and you dug a little deeper, kind of created that engagement. That is one of the things that we did straight off of that idea from Dion when we did the stuff that's under the band of our cigars, right? Like, there was always a layer underneath the simple stuff. And then, then you look at a company like Crux, and you have where they had all these kind of 5 brands, but they were kind of not connected. And then when they did their rebranding, they created this kind of house of brands that I feel like really worked. So in some ways, rebranding is just a company reaches a point where now that they've got all the stuff out there, they're going to kind of get it all collected and represent it. And sometimes it's like a Hail Mary, because whatever they're doing is not working, and they're trying to reinvent themselves. And sometimes you change a box or a label or whatever because of a regulatory issue, like warning labels are coming or whatever. So, each company has their own reason for doing it. But, I kind of agree with Abe and Charlie both. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. John, so Abe mentioned, Tatuaje. And I'll be honest, I was a little surprised by that, because Tatuaje, at least to me as a consumer, is pretty well delineated. So, as far as all the brands, the ones we've discussed already, what are your thoughts about, from a retail and a consumer perspective?
Well, listen, I think there's 2 parts to the retail part, and I mean, I agree that you probably want consistent branding just from and Skip talked about it, having a section on the wall in the retailer shop. If you've got multiple boxes and they're not, some retailers maybe aren't organizing their humidor in the best possible way, so maybe the boxes are spread out and they don't have them in a cohesive section. That said, I mean, Illusione's always made good cigars, so unifying the branding probably makes sense. I like the branding. I mean, I've smoked them for a long time, so I'm kind of sad to see that go away. But I guess if it helps the brand, that's great. Like I said, at the same time, I think it totally makes sense. But retailers still need to sort of do their job of saying like, hey, these are really great cigars. You should probably try them. Like I still don't fathom how if you've got a boutique cigar shop that carries a lot of boutique cigars, and I've heard comments that like, yeah, we had a hard time moving Illusione, and I'm like, that seems like a you problem, not a a marketing or a band problem for them. But yeah, I mean, Tatuaje is a good example of they've been around. Same thing, they've been around long enough that like. You either know the brand or you don't. I don't know that, changing the packaging necessarily changes that per se, but it certainly won't hurt to have a unified band style and box style across the entire line.
Yeah. I agree across the board with a lot of the Crux comments and even from, viewers in the comments is that their rebrand was really, it was really well done, and it was smart because although I did like their look in the beginning, it was after they made all the changes that I saw everything lined up on a store shelf, and it kind of hit me. I said, okay, this makes more sense the way it's lined up.
What's funny is, and Abe can tell you this, there's going to be some guy who's been smoking, that original Documents line forever. Yeah. And now that the packaging's changed, he's going to swear up and down it's different.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's going to be people that are just going to think it disappeared. I mean, this is the part that I think Abe knows better than the rest of us. But like, there are people that have never heard of any of the websites that we own that buy lots of cigars. In fact, most people buying cigars have never heard of any of the websites that we have, let alone Smoke Inn or Romacraft. And there are people that have bought Illusione 888s. I know it as that cigar with the 3/8 on it or whatever. Don't even know it's called Illusione. Just know where it is in the humidor and what they like, and they're going to see something else there, and it's going to be the retailer's responsibility as well as to some degree Dion's. But it's a massive uphill challenge of trying to let people know, hey, this is the same product. Let alone the problem that Skip's talking about, which is going to be rampant, amongst the sort of consumer base that I think we interact with a lot more.
Abe, you're on mute.
We look, as retailers, we've seen this plethora of times over the decades, right? So it's really not on a retail door level. It's not that big of a deal. Someone's going to come in, see something he doesn't recognize, and say, "Oh no, here it is, exact same cigar, it's just new packaging." And most consumers have been exposed to new packaging, whether it's detergent, whether it's Coke, whether it's Pepsi. Things change over time. There's a percentage of the consumer, you're right, Charlie, they'll say, oh, it's not the same cigar. But that's, I think, small, and that's just, a casualty of the move for the more significant gain you hope to get, and even those guys after a while will go try something else. They don't like it, and the majority of them will even come back and start smoking that cigar if that's what they really like, because at the end of the day, we all know they're not changing the blends, it's the same cigars.
I mean, I agree with you, like in the case of Ashton, but Illusione is where they're just literally just changing the packaging in a pretty minor way. Illusione is changing the name of the line in a lot of cases, or almost all these cases, the name of the Vitola. Like the packaging does not look the same. Even the Illusione branding doesn't look the same. I think it's going to be a pretty substantial uphill climb for retailers, for in stores where the retailers aren't hand selling in a manner that's similar to Smoke Inn. And I think the other thing that's just different here is I don't think any of us are thinking that Dion's sales are poor. So it's not necessarily, and I don't mean to shit on Crux, but like the volume that Crux was doing prior to the rebrand cannot be similar to what Illusione Original Documents is doing. And so there is a lot at play here that's a bit different than I think a lot of these other rebrands.
I think in the case, I think in the case of Dion, it's a strategic evolution that he's looking for at this point.
And the new stuff looks good, right? I mean, it looks good. I'm kind of like I'm gonna miss the old stuff because we'll be in 10 years we'll be talking, hey, you remember the Holy Lance, you remember the Mary Magdalene, But I'll tell you, I'll give you a perfect example of this. I used to be a big 601 smoker from EO Brands, And at that time, I believe they were being made by my father, if I'm correct.
That's right.
And I was a big fan of that cigar. That whole line, the green, I had it all worked out, the green, the blue, everything. And then there was a little period of time where they went over to Rocky, and the band was kind of the same, but it was like downgraded in terms of quality, in terms of, execution. It looked like Crayola, cheap Crayola kind of labels on it, and that didn't last very long at all. And I just remember that change in packaging was a shift in that brand for me, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of other those where there was a change in packaging and it was a shift in the positive direction, right? Like, oh, these guys got their shit together. The quality is now reflected in the packaging. They're doing a better job on the backside too. Let me try it again, and boom, it clicked with me. So my only advice on this would be, and this is kind of the golden rule, is I think changing your packaging, changing your branding, redoing this is perfectly accepted in this business. It's not a deal breaker at all. Just make sure that what you're doing new fixes all the problems and makes it better than the old. If you go backwards, then it's the beginning of the end, I think.
Yeah, because you don't want to make it more confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, so if we're talking big brand versus small brand, craft versus like Illusione versus Altadis, Budweiser versus the craft brewery down the street, not down the street, but like Surly here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, pretty well known even outside of Minnesota. If a regular Bud Light drinker goes into his liquor store and goes to buy his 48 can pack or whatever the hell of Bud 12-ounce Bud Light cans, and the outside of the cardboard on the case looks a little different and the cans look a little different, first of all, he's not going to care. Second of all, he's not going to taste any difference because that stuff is basically brewed by computer. And although it's not the same with cigars, when we're talking huge brands that, factories that roll, tens, hundreds of millions of cigars a year, versus a brand that rolls 2 million cigars a year, they're already on an uphill climb. As far as small, like Crux, for example, they're already smaller in brand, smaller in scale, and not as well known as Monte Cristo and Trinidad, for example. But the smokers who enjoy Crux on a regular basis, not in all cases, but in more cases than those who smoke Monte Cristo whites, they would have maybe a slightly higher percentage chance of noticing if there's a difference, if there's a marked difference in the blend.
Right, like my 601 example.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll give you another example is the Sancho Panza, the rebranding of that at the show, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who saw that, and this is a guy who hasn't bought a Sancho Panza in years, so take it for what it's worth. I think it's really important to understand, and I think a lot of times when we comment on things in the industry, we overlook this fact that there are a bunch of different segments of different kinds of consumers and different kinds of products that connect with those consumers. The classic Sancho Panza brand, right, to me, connected to a classic cigar smoker and a classic kind of cigar buyer, and it kind of migrated into this catalog zone where maybe they just stopped selling any significant amount of them at all because people just forgot about it, right? But like Henry Clay or whatever. But I'll tell you that this whole kind of East LA kind of Chicano graffiti kind of thing doesn't align with the whole Don Quixote kind of Sancho Panza brand thing that it's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino version of Romeo and Juliet, or whatever. It's not, I'm not the target audience for that. Maybe there's some huge block of that group of people that are gonna grab onto this brand and make it successful again. I don't know, but I know I'm not the target. I wasn't buying the old one, even though I respected it as a traditional brand. The new one completely turns me off. I won't even buy it or try it. That's me as a consumer. But maybe I'm not the target, right?
Yeah, I would say that's a brand that, Sancho Panza specifically, outside of the Cuban ones, but the ones available in shops on U.S. soil. Honestly, I don't know how to put this delicately, but the consumers who that was their regular cigar, who were going into their shop, once a week and buying 5 of those and sitting down with their buddies at the cigar shop smoking those week after week after week, they're dead.
Yeah, right.
Those consumers are no longer alive.
Yeah.
And,
they were smoking with George Burns back in the day, right?
Yeah, so they're and the younger, the 25, to 34-year-old cigar consumers are going to see those old style Sancho Panzas and say that is the most grandpa looking cigar in the whole humidor at this shop, and they're going to look for something else.
Yeah, but I'm saying if it was me, maybe I would have grabbed onto that classic. And of course, General hasn't hired me to be a brand guy, but I would have grabbed onto that
Skip's
classic.
taking offers though.
I would have grabbed onto that classic, Don Quixote kind of Picasso version of the picture of Sancho Panza, the statue in Madrid. I would have really gotten maybe a little bit kind of quirky with it, but really stuck into the brand story, right, and reintroduce it as a crazy, better product. But I don't know what their goal was. I can tell you, I wasn't buying it before, and I ain't buying it now, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to last year's show on the Hive Mind, and I brought up a question about the over/under on how long it was going to be before sales dip back down to pre-COVID numbers. And I set the line at 2 years. And so we're basically halfway through that now. So I'll say at the time, I went back and checked it out. So John, you took the over. Abe, you took never, or the over. Charlie, you took the under, and Skip, you didn't really answer, but I think you took the under. I think you took.
So you're saying I was right.
So I wanted to.
I don't think that's accurate.
I think if you look at age numbers, or if you look at some retailers, hit the accelerator on this COVID thing and have come out of it stronger, and they're killing. They probably will never return, not unless something big happens, return to pre-COVID numbers. But that's because a lot of places are either dead or dying, and that business went somewhere, right? But and you can't look at imports, because imports doesn't tell you anything about inventories, right? But my overall sense is that we started to see a decline in the COVID bump around November. This trade show, there are some people who died. They just don't know they're dead yet, because they've made big moves at the factory finally to increase their inventories, to sell to retailers who just simply aren't buying. And I think what's going to happen, my best guess is in the next 12 months from July to July, you're going to see U.S. imports go down by about 80 million, and you're going to see EU imports go up by about 80 to 100 million. And the companies that already have really good, strong distribution and connection, like Hoya and Davidoff and Jay Cortez with Oliva, and these companies are going to kill it in Europe in the next year. And the small guys who kind of stuck their necks out, went out on a limb, they're going to be in a lot of trouble in the next 12 months in the U.S.
I don't know how accurate, to be honest with you, any of that is even close to happening. But all I know is you guys need to take the video clip of Charlie Monado's facial response, because that's the meme in the happening right there. If anybody caught that move when Skip was talking, I want it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to use it, Charlie.
Like what the fuck's he talking about?
Well, I don't.
80 million more cigars to Europe? Jesus.
I think so in the next 12 months.
So I've got.
Can they
got
handle
Europe.
Yes.
I've got Europe later on the list of questions. I've got Europe later. So But I want to go to back to John and Abe. So John, are you still feeling, positive about the over?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we're seeing double-digit growth like you did during COVID, but I think there's still probably high single-digit growth, and I think that's going to maintain. I don't think, at least I would say for the next 18 to 24 months, I think you're going to see consistent growth. I think with this FTA thing, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but I'm sure with this FTA thing, how that lands is going to have an impact. But overall, I think there's going to be continued growth for the next 18 to 24 months. Not pre-COVID, but we're not the sales and imports, however you want to classify that, are not receding. We are not at pre-COVID levels. We are definitely still in a post-COVID market.
Okay. And Abe, are you still positive about the numbers staying up? And
Yeah, I don't see a feasible path for us to return to pre-2019 numbers, pre-COVID numbers. It's just not going to happen. We knew, as far as especially on the e-commerce side, because most of our growth and boom came when every other retail in the country was closed, and basically people would never shopped online before had to shop online. We knew there was going to be a coming down. We didn't experience it at all in 2021. And I think it began, March of this year, and it's a leveling off, but nowhere the path is leveling and it's not tanking. So, and then that was our goal going in. It's like, look, we know that it's sooner or later, whatever is going on here is going to come to an end, and how do we maintain, or how do we keep a nice percentage of the growth? On the other hand, our retail doors are all still growing and doing better on our local level. So, I don't see a path to going for us. And I have to assume most retailers that, are somewhat successful with business. I don't see a path to going to pre-COVID numbers.
Well, let me ask you a question, Abe. So before Charlie completely discredits everything I said. So the question I would ask you is, and this was a general kind of consensus that I heard, which was, it's not that there's a whole bunch of new smokers during COVID. It's the people that smoke cigars are buying more. Is that true?
They absolutely overbought.
Right. So,
but there also are new smokers. I mean, it's not a black and white area.
But I'm saying
COVID undoubtedly created some level of new smokers. Is it the cause of the boom? It's most likely not, but there are new smokers. I believe there are a lot more cigar smokers or people who enjoy the hobby than there was 2 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, that's anecdotal and maybe it's true, but I just don't get that. I feel like new smokers are built by really solid brick and mortar retailers. And they're not built by online companies, right? So
no, it's built by online retailers. But guess what happens with those guys when you build them in an online retail store? A percentage of them go find online retailers.
Yeah. I mean, the only kind of new smokers, like people I've seen really getting into, and maybe I'm just disconnected, but are like these Bravada Cigar Club guys who are kind of popping up everywhere. It's a really strong movement, and they're people who I never really saw before. So either I just didn't see them before, or Bravada's doing a great job of building new cigar smokers. But if retailers are generally where new cigar smokers are built, and there's less good retailers, it seems like the number of new cigar smokers coming in are going down, and the number of cigar smokers who are quitting or dying or whatever are going, cutting off the other side.
Skip, you always talk about all the bad retailers. I mean,
I'm just asking.
No,
that's my impression.
I've been in the industry 25 years. There are definitely bad retailers, but they're definitely bad at everything, any industry.
That's
bad
true.
Retailers are part of our industry. There are bad retailers in Florida, and I don't know one shop. And Florida, as anybody here knows, is stocked with retailers everywhere. I don't know one guy who's closed down.
Right.
If there's one miraculous thing I can tell you about the industry is sucky retailers seem to live forever.
Right.
So no one's closing down. They're not going anywhere.
And I'm not saying so much about bad retailers. I'm trying to give credit to really good retailers being able to build smokers.
They do. But I don't know how and what exactly is the barometer. All I know is, as on a cigar shop on a retail level, our staff sees people come in. I'm just getting into this, or your regulars. All of a sudden, there's a new guy. Sometimes the new guy's not new to cigar smoking. He's new to your neighborhood. He just moved to
Right,
town.
right.
I mean, it's all part of the equation. I mean, I don't know how to break it down in a finite number.
Yeah, I mean, the same way that I don't see kind of fluctuations in demand because we kind of are always under our demand. I don't see when it goes up and down so much as a company. Because you're such a good retailer, I think maybe you don't see, that piece of it either because you're so insulated from by being as good as you are and owning the area that you're in, you don't maybe see it as much as we do nationally.
I mean, I don't know. We talk. I talk to all the retailers at the trade show. I'm friends with a lot of retailers. Many of them are in this chat. I mean, we all kind of relate. I mean, and like I said, it's like I said, the bad retailers don't seem to go away. So I don't, and yet I still hear new cigar shop. They're building a, I don't know what, some absurd number, $4 million new shop in Tampa. It's coming up. So, I mean, who are these people opening up for? They keep opening up all the time, and very few people do I hear closing, because I would know, because they would come to us to see we'd want to acquire them. So if they're local,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah,
right.
I mean, it's not happening.
Listen, if I know we're going to get into it later in the show, but if this Habanos pricing thing has indicated anything, it's that I think we might be underestimating the market pretty vastly as in terms of how much growth potentially there is, both on a dollar figure perspective and a new cigar smoker market perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always heard this number of 25 million of Habanos was consumed in the U.S. And if they're having issues
It's
getting
got to be
stores
more
to,
than that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be
So
well
so
under.
let's say maybe if those guys switch to smoking New World cigars, maybe that's a new source of new smokers, right? But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I want Charlie's take on the U.S. On the over under. Are you still sticking to your last year's under?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty alarming to me that there are large, some of Abe's competitors that are quite frankly larger than Abe are running heavy discounts on a weekly basis on most of their inventory. Not here's everything that's on sale, but here's a 20% off coupon, or here's, $40 off 200. I understand that some of this is, just the nature of the market, and for the consumers watching the show, like cigar prices keep going up. Retailers, at the brick and mortar level, don't typically pass along the discounts that they receive, whereas the online guys are much more aggressive about passing those discounts, or at least some of those discounts on. But I mean, that tells me that it can't be the case that all of Abe's or most of Abe's competitors are struggling this poorly, or are in full-on customer acquisition mode where they feel the need to make this sort of a standing discount. I do think that the Habanos thing will impact it. And I was sort of thinking about that, 5 minutes ago. I just don't know how much of it will be, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But those consumers are going to be a lot more difficult to capture, and a lot of them, quite frankly, are going to be willing to pay these prices. They just may smoke less, and it'll be what it'll be in that regards. But I don't think it's going to be the case that you're just going to see 25 million cigars go from Habanos' portfolio to Taiwaje, Padron, Fuente, Davidoff, etc. I think a lot of those people are going to actually remain pretty loyal to Habanos.
Yeah, so we're kind of there, and I don't want to derail this, so let's kind of keep the conversation going. That what I put in the notes was, the Habanos price increases. I mean, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong. They varied depending on the line and all that. They varied from 20% to 200%. Is that right?
No.
400%.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the line, the cigar, but also the country.
Right.
And so if you're in the lower tax markets, so that would be Cuba, Spain, Germany, Switzerland to some degree, etc., it's going to be much more punishing than it will be, at least from what we understand of it. This is confusing, and also from what I gather, the local distributors can set their pricing the way they'd like to, and then the retailers can set their pricing in some of these countries, not in every one. In Germany, for example, you must sell the cigars for what the tax stamp on the box says. So there's basically in Germany a MSRP plus German tax is the price that you should pay unless someone's doing something illegally. But no, in the case of Trinidad in Spain, you're talking about 300-400% increases. For some of those cigars.
So when you take that in conjunction with the steady increase over the last 10-15 years of New World cigar sales in Europe, what kind of effect do you think that's going to have on, first of all, the pricing? Because is that going to open the door for pricing changes for New World cigars in Europe and Asia? And are there going to be any residual effects from that felt here in the States because of those New World price increases in Europe, if those New World price increases are in fact going to happen in Europe?
I mean, I think that one thing to remember or to understand about particularly Europe, which is the easiest market for us to explain, because it's the one that the non-Cuban world has penetrated the most, or the New World world, as you would say, is that most of the European countries are not profitable for just about any American, let's call it, company selling cigars over there. Germany is, I think, for everybody, pretty much everyone that's in Germany is the one that you make money at. Some people do very well in Spain, some people do very well in France, some people do well in Italy, Belgium, etc. But in general, if you're not doing well in Germany, I think it's going to be a real uphill battle for this to work. Some of these countries, like the United Kingdom, quite frankly, I would have to guess that if Skip was selling cigars in the United Kingdom, if he took one trip to the UK to do a shop visit per year, that would demolish the profit margin. And that's assuming that Skip isn't going and, buying luxury goods in the UK. That market is super small. And it's not one that's, quite frankly, worth much. I think that what's been apparent to me, and I've been going to Dortmund every year that they've had the Intertobacco trade show since 2012. And so I was there basically when there was 10 non-Cuban companies, and that was very different in 2019, is that the price points are helpful to begin with. A general standard has been, it obviously just changed over the years, but in Germany, whatever your cigar is in dollars in the US, you price that in euros. In Germany is how a lot of people were doing that for many, many years. It would still be higher because the euro obviously trades, higher than the dollar, but
not anymore.
Not to the same extent. You can't get away with that and keep your profit margins. But the thing was that there's a group of Cuban cigar smokers who are never going to smoke a non-Cuban cigar. And that's what I think a lot of Americans think of when they think of classic Davidoff of London consumer. Those guys are out from the word Nicaragua. However, people that are my age and getting into cigar smoking, they walk into a cigar shop with a much more open mind. Just like when they walk into Abe's store, the younger people are going to be much more likely to smoke acid than they are to smoke a non-flavored cigar. And so that has always been the case. And you look at it particularly in Germany, but also in Holland, and to some degree in Belgium, there's a strong non-Cuban culture, and it's not just people under the age of 40, but it heavily skews towards people that are under the age that Skip just turned.
Swipes. So I'm sure someone over at Hoya is, because they do really well in Europe, is figuring out how to make cigars that don't draw, that don't burn correctly, that go immediately in the box after production and are way overpriced. And they're going to penetrate that unpenetrable, when there is no inventory of Habanos, that douchey guy in Dunhill on whatever Easy Street, right? He's gonna come in and say, if I can't buy the Cohiba, what can I buy? I got just the cigar for you. You're gonna love it. And then people like Septimo and Gurkha are gonna make $3,000 cigars to sell in Singapore and Hong Kong. It's all the Chinese money that just wants the most expensive thing possible, with gold flakes all over it and all that shit. And so I think the people that have the best, in my opinion, the people who have the best opportunity to grab this market are the Dominicans. So whereas Nicaragua's taking a little bit of a lead in the U.S. kind of preference of tobacco, I think Dominican, who've been struggling to kind of recreate a classic Cuban cigar for years and doing a much better job than the Cubans themselves, in my opinion, are going to be able to once they get those cigars, if they create high dollar, kind of high quality, high packaging things like what, or even in Costa Rica, like the things that Atabey and Byron are doing. I think those kinds of cigars really have an opportunity to displace or to replace where this inventory is not available in London. And for the record, Charlie, we do pretty good in London. We used to sell to London from Schuster, but because of Brexit, we've started to sell directly to London. We have a single retailer there, and he does really good. It's not a lot of money, but for us, we don't need a lot. But he does a very good job with our brand, and we make money at it.
Yeah, but if you took
we're not
one
getting
trip
rich.
to London, would you still have your profit margin?
One trip to Harrods.
No, just to London, just Austin to Heathrow and back.
Yeah, I don't fly coach, so that is an issue. One of the benefits we have is we sell directly from the factory, right? So we don't even realize any of the profit margins for international stuff in the U.S. So we don't pay the same kind of taxes. So it's a whole different model, but we do pretty good. And you're right. The trip I just took over there, the 2-week, 3-week trip through 7 countries, it eats up a big chunk of that.
I think.
But,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what we've got going on, and the pricing thing is a tail thing of what's happening with Habanos in Europe. I mean, you're talking about 18 to 24 months of massively declining inventory in shops to the point where there's, you walk in, I think Jay mentioned it, and I know from firsthand experience, there's key shops in Paris that literally have no boxes, 0 boxes of
or empty
Habanos
boxes
for sale. There's literally nothing you can buy, and that's not like Petit Coronas. And actually, I don't even think you can buy boxes of Petit Coronas. I think you can only buy singles because they're holding them back. But, there's no inventory to buy, and it hasn't been that way for a little while. It's been that way for an extended period of time. And on the tail end of that, now what you're talking about is a minimum price increase of 18 to 22%, and in some cases 300 to 400%. So you've got a lot of things happening at once, and the biggest thing you're going to see is if you are a hardcore Habano smoker, you're almost certainly going to be down trading from, if you're smoking a more premium brand like Trinidad because you have taste, you're going to be almost certainly down trading to a lower Marca that probably isn't going to taste the same to you, maybe. And so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Habano smokers to maybe not switch over to quote unquote new world cigars, but I think you're going to see a big spike in dual use cigar smokers from guys who said I'll never smoke a new world cigar to saying, you know what, it's all I can get. These actually are pretty good. They draw right and they smoke pretty good and they taste pretty good. They didn't taste like they did when I smoked one cigar 10 years ago from my father. And so I think you're going to see a lot more dual use. And as availability continues to be challenged from tobacco all the way to rolled cigars, with New World being in there now for many, many years, this is a great opportunity for all New World companies that are already present in the shops. I don't see any part of this being a downside for New World manufacturers.
One thing, and then I'll try to set Abe up here. I think it actually starts before that. I think that the thing that hasn't been talked about enough is if you are not a Mark Benden, so not Cigar World in Dusseldorf, you are a small or medium-sized tobacco shop, I don't know what you're doing if you're not going to be willing to switch to non-Cuban cigars.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to start well before the consumers have their say, because some of these shops, I have no idea how they can possibly stay alive if they're not willing to say, we're going to, buy as many Cuban cigars as we get our hands on, and every euro that's left over, it's going to buying non-Cuban cigars, because otherwise, what the hell are we going to sell? And
well, Charlie, you can see just from
Abe up.
Yeah, sorry, you can see before you get to this. So you could see 2 things. One, I go into a shop in Paris that 5 years ago had, just because they're friends with Christian Rowe or whatever, they have a few boxes over here, but everything else is
entirely Habanos.
Right. And then now you go from that extreme to they're willing to buy anything to you have these distributors coming. There was probably as many international buyers at PCA as there were American. I mean, it's exaggeration, but there was a lot of international buyers at the trade show, and where I used to get 2 or 3 a month of people from wherever, UAE, whatever, asking, we get daily requests from people in these countries because there is no inventory, so they're already there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my setup for Abe was like, I mean, I can't imagine a world where, I mean, I don't know, Abe, you can't imagine a world because I don't think you've ever been in this position where 85% of your sales are with one vendor, and then that vendor says, sorry, we can't supply you anymore, or we're going to do our best to supply you, which is basically nothing. And you're not even in the smoke-in position. You're in we've had one cigar store not in Paris. We're in a suburb, and this shop's been around for 100 years, and, we have enough money to pay us and an employee, and that's kind of it. And now it's just nothing to sell.
And what we can supply you, by the way, just went up 400%. So have fun with that.
We start.
But I don't think they're going to complain about that because you need something to sell.
Yeah. And a lot of them, Charlie, are asking for private labels. So, X shop in Paris that's been there forever owns trademarks for their own private stuff, and maybe they're not willing to start trying to grow Tatuaje and Roma, but they're definitely wanting to get inventory of their own private label stuff from the factories in Nicaragua and the Dominican and Honduras.
Dave, I tried.
No worries. Not really a topic that relates to me that much.
Well, the second half of the question kind of should lean in your direction, and that is, so with the lack of availability and massive price increases of Habanos product in Europe, and I'm not saying that Nicaraguan and Dominican companies are going to start, rubbing their hands together and doing the evil cackle, saying, "Oh, we can raise our prices now to, make more money over in Europe." But it would stand to reason that if Habanos raises their prices, let's say, just pulling a number out of the air, 200% on these marcas in Germany, for example, and they raise the prices on those, and then let's say, and I'm just going to name a company out of the air because it was already mentioned. Hoya says, well, all these shops in Germany are selling this Habanos product now for 200% more than they were selling it for yesterday. We could easily raise our prices on our Hoya product in those German shops 15%, and it's still going to feel like a bargain to the customer. At what point, if and I'm not saying they're going to do that, but if they do raise those prices, that 10 or 15%, just to, try to get a little extra money for their effort in Europe, at what point are those price increases going to be felt in the United States, if at all? Abe.
I'm jealous of Charlie right now.
I'll just go on the record and say I don't think that's going to happen.
Question in the history of any interview I've ever had in my life. Someone needs to watch that and record it in time how long that was. But listen, all I can tell you is one is I don't think that the New World manufacturers are going to play that game of jacking up prices in one country, or in the European market and not jack them up here because of what's going on there. I just don't think that's a business model that many of them are going to follow. And if you want to talk about the prices of cigars here, I don't think they're going to raise their prices of cigars here, but I'm going to tell you what. I was a little surprised that a lot of new cigars are coming out that are $20, $30 ranges. Even Marifel $80 ranges. One of the things my operations guy said to me is that he couldn't believe how many new cigars that were coming out that were just in the ultra premium price point.
So the fact, if you look at it from a factory perspective, Matt, and to what Abe just said, if you look at it from a factory perspective, you labor is a no matter where the cigar ends up going, or what label gets put on it, the tobacco costs almost about the same for every cigar. The packaging varies a little bit. The labor costs about the same every cigar, right? So if you only have so much capacity and so much tobacco, you're going to try to put that tobacco, if it's high quality, into a product, and you're going to try to sell it to the market that's going to pay the highest price for it. So what will happen over time, the elasticity of demand is going to determine how much they can increase. These $30 cigars, if nobody buys them, the prices will go back down, and those will die. If those get bought up, then they'll make more of them, right? If they can sell more to Europe and the demand is going up, and they're asking for more and more and more, then the price will go up, because they're making a choice between sending it here or sending it to the U.S. So, it's the market's going to decide where those things happen, and the market is going to judge whether those decisions to sell $30 cigars are a good decision. But like I said earlier, there's a lot of different segments of the market. I'm not the $30 cigar guy. I'm an $8, 5 cigar, 7 cigar a day guy. So, but there may be a 1 cigar a week or a 2 cigar a week guy where $30 or $20 doesn't make any difference to him.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I guess, and Abe's right. I was super long-winded with the question, but the fact is, I'm just looking for kind of the lowdown between is the cigar market in Europe too small to have any effect, even a few years down the road, on pricing in the U.S.?
Collectively,
No, it's
no.
not.
Okay.
But the issue is that Habanos is playing a different game. They are a monolithic beast that has competed in these markets with basically no competition. Hoya was the sort of lone outlier of, here's a company selling cigars where more than half of their sales are not in the U.S. Pretty much everyone else you saw at the trade show is the exact opposite of that, and has been the opposite of that. And I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you were, doing your essay for Abe was that somebody like Oliva is just not going to let this happen.
Right.
Oliva will be glad to say, you know what, we see everyone, like in this hypothetical scenario that I don't think is going to happen. But if everyone else, say, raises their prices by just 30%, Oliva, STG, and pretty much everybody else, but let's just say for the sake of this, hypothetical that will be quite long probably, that it's everyone except Oliva. Oliva would just sit there and go, you know what, we'll just buy shelf space. Even if our costs went up 40%, we will not raise prices and just undercut everyone else. And once we put enough of them out of business, then we can slowly increase our prices and get all that profit back. But Habanos hasn't had to play that game because I don't know what the number would be, but I would venture to guess the majority of places they are sold, the vast majority of cigars in that retail store have been Cuban cigars. And so they haven't really been competing against anyone else. Whereas in America, like, it just wouldn't work. Somebody would say, I'm just going to go and be the guy that's known for making $9 cigars.
Well, even if it became legal tomorrow in the United States, Cuban cigars would still go more to Asia than to the U.S.
That's
I don't
in
think
Asia
so.
we barely even touched on Asia, but I mean, I know they're growing, but there's obviously a higher overall population density, but there's fewer cigar smokers than the United States, correct?
There's a lot less consumption, right?
Yeah.
The consumption in the U.S. is greater by almost 2x of the entire consumption of the rest of the world combined.
Yeah. Well, and looking at Habanos like Oliva, Charlie, I picture, cigars that I'm not saying they taste remotely similar. I'm just saying from a appearance standpoint, a size standpoint. I look at a Ramon Iones specially selected next to an Oliva G Robusto. I'm going to buy the Oliva G Robusto all day long versus over the Cuban Iones for a number of reasons, but
Primarily because you can't buy a Ramon Iones. That's going to be the biggest issue.
and that's going to be it's going to come down to availability.
And you've also been conditioned different than those consumers.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because I've smoked 100 times more Series G Robustos than I have, specially selected. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think there's just a consumer behavior thing that's being discounted here. Like the people that are entering cigar smoking in Europe and the U.S. and everywhere, like they aren't
no strong attachment
preconditioned.
Yeah.
And also the ways that they interact with the outside world, for the most part, are going to mean that they are much more likely to see a show like this than the people that are sitting in Davidoff of London where they sit every day, on Tuesday. This is the spot they sit. They go buy their one cigar. They smoke their cigar. They chat with their friends. So the old school Cuban cigar smoker, like that is a dying breed for the same reason why you talk about, we were having the Sancho Panza conversation earlier. Like, also, those people are leaving the market. And I think that that's happened in Europe. And I also think that the efforts by the non-Cuban manufacturers to go over there and to really market like they do in the U.S., whether that be with in-store events, which is something that is completely foreign to most European stores, whether that be with social media, whether that be with swag, like that's all stuff that by and large doesn't exist, not in every instance, but for the most part with Habanos, like that's not been what they've been doing because once again, they haven't really had to compete with anyone.
Right.
Yeah. If you have a can koozie that says Cohiba on it, it's definitely was not given to you by anyone from Habanos SA. So if everybody's good with that, I want to move on to the next subject. All right. So July 5th, the announcement of the federal court ruling that the FDA acted improperly. So is this a long-term victory or is it just a short-term feel good measure?
I can physically, I can literally watch McTavish getting buzzed.
See me
I'm
getting
pretty sure he was
buzzed?
drunk beforehand.
No, there's not enough. Unfortunately, there's not enough bourbon at high enough proof in this bottle
I'm
to
gonna
get
pour
that
another
done.
glass
I'm
right
just
now.
enjoying Charlie's reaction, sipping on the wine as he waits for Matt to stumble into the end of that question because he's loaded and he's ready to go because he knew this was coming.
Does anyone else want to talk?
I mean, Charlie's the most informed on this, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. So
I could just say
Yeah.
something and then you can tell me all the ways I'm wrong, Charlie.
And that's what I look
that's
for.
usually how he sets me up, and then he flips it
That's
to
how I
Abe
met
to make
Skip.
me look like an asshole.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a very good win. I described it in one of the articles as, as currently sits, it's a 9 out of 10. It could be a 10 out of 10. So to give you guys the 60-second version of what happened, there's been an ongoing federal court case filed by 3 cigar trade organizations against FDA regarding the cigar regulations that were proposed in 2016 or introduced in 2016. Many of these things, such as warning labels on advertising, bans on packaging changes are making it very hard to do them. Those things have been thrown out. Some of the things, the more arduous task of the deeming regulations, mainly product testing, have been put on hold as part of this ongoing court case, which has been going on since 2016. The decision on July 5th was basically that the FDA, when it was evaluating these regulations in between 2014 and 2016, it had proposed an option or options. Option 1 was to regulate all cigars the same. Option 2 was to regulate a subset of cigars, which were hypothetically defined as premium cigars. I won't get into the definition, to potentially regulate them differently. And the FDA asked for evidence from both the public and companies and trade groups and health groups to propose why or to support why FDA should either choose option 1 or option 2. In 2016, FDA chose option 1 to regulate all the cigars the same. What the court ruled was that the FDA did not properly evaluate evidence that may have supported a case for option 2. And that is a no-no as part of the rules that govern FDA. And as such, the court is currently evaluating whether or not the entire rule for premium cigars should be thrown out. So basically, the cigars that Skip sells and the cigars that Abe sells, for the most part on Abe's behalf, would just not be regulated by FDA. Or there's the option that FDA could be forced by the court to go back and sort of start the process from, let's say, step 2 as opposed to step 1. The general consensus amongst the cigar industry, the people that are much more familiar with this, is that regardless of how the court decides, whether they say step 1 or step 2, this is probably a pretty indefinite hold on cigar regulations. FDA has publicly stated that these types of cigars are its lowest priority. And it's also shown just basically no desire to regulate these things. It's also worth pointing out that FDA has got major things in front of it, major policy decisions, including a potential ban on flavored cigars, a potential ban on menthol cigarettes, and a potential limit on nicotine in cigarettes, as well as the regulation of e-cigarettes, which is a complete mess. Those four things make it even less likely that they would want to spend time and resources dealing with premium cigars, which they don't really care all that much about.
And the recent Supreme Court case about
EPA.
EPA and the Federal Register also applies to any kind of regulatory, which works in our benefit as well.
Yeah, I think in
I-
particular
yeah.
for the flavored cigar stuff, the EPA case is it's a massive win if you're in the flavored cigar menthol cigarette world. And for those,
Or
the very
vape.
short version, the vape one will be interesting. But yeah, I think because the vape, there probably is enough congressional support for Congress to go back and clarify it. For those that don't know about the EPA ruling, the short of it was the Supreme Court ruled that unless Congress has given an executive agency explicit instructions about regulations, there's going to be a much more difficult pathway to agencies like FDA or EPA creating rules. So if Congress says, FDA, we give you the authority to regulate tobacco, it probably needs to specify the types of products and the types of regulations that it would like to see. This was a recent Supreme Court ruling, so it's going to be interesting to see how the court system sort of evaluates what the Supreme Court said. But it's certainly, if you work for the Department of Justice, on behalf of the FDA and sort of defending regulations, your job just got a hell of a lot less productive.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was worried about, 5, 6, 7 years ago, was that I wasn't sure how willing the federal court system was going to be to really get granular with the details, surrounding tobacco products, specifically cigars and the whole umbrella that cigars can contain. And it seems, at least in the last few rulings, that they're willing to get very granular when it comes to defining specifics. So that, to me, that's encouraging.
Well,
That's not new.
What Meta basically did, which we've all lost a lot of faith in institutions, and from the very beginning, the day that the deeming regulation came out, I said three things basically. I said, A, I have faith in the institutions to uphold kind of the rule of law and the kind of the fairness in process, and two, part of the reason why we're in this is because we failed to kind of do some of this ourselves, and we let Tech and other people kind of drag us down into this battle over, what is a cigar? And then the third thing was, let's not fight the freedom, the Braveheart freedom yell. Let's go and let's understand that we're probably subject to regulation. Let's go fight. We're not going to win it by getting Congress to do their job. We're not going to win it by making a freedom argument or a First Amendment argument or whatever. We're gonna win it by the facts and the fairness of the process, which is, and at the end of the day, what Maida said was, I'm not getting into the details of how the minutia of how you do regulations. I'm saying you guys did not do a fair process. And so if a fair process is done, cigars have a different health effect. Cigars are not marketed to youth and are therefore, should be regulated differently, if at all, in terms of priority. And then the EPA thing says, well, maybe unless Congress gives you the specific authority to regulate in a specific way, maybe you don't even have the right to regulate that way.
Classic argument: pancakes versus waffles.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So, So for me, I'm grateful. I feel like we kind of put faith in the system, and it turned out to be well placed. I'm grateful at the end of the day that the well thought out comments and the public comments of CRA and IPSPR and some others really became a pivot point for Meta. And I'm very grateful that we have this guy on the bench who's not a tobacco jihadist, and he wanted fair process. And in the end, we benefit from that.
Thanks, Obama.
I'd just like to clarify two things. The first is that that comment was only by the CRA.
Right.
They
CRA,
will,
yeah.
They will defend that. The comment was different from the IPCPR and the CA. The second thing is that to Skip's point about the evidence will show, there is no evidence. That's part of the problem, and that's part of FDA's responsibility. Skip is absolutely correct that Maida said, I'm basically not going to look to see whether or not you have the evidence to support it, though he did in the case of whether or not children are using premium cigars. He did briefly go into that. But the NASEM report that came out in May was pretty clear that there's just not evidence about premium cigar health effects, and what very little exists tends to be old evidence and derivative evidence. And I think that this is what makes the pathway for FDA to regulate this, regardless of the next step. If Maida says go back to step 1 or step 2, is that FDA is going to have to clear the bar of it needs evidence, and the cigar industry is going to be able to say, look, you have been considering this since 2014. You allegedly were regulating this industry since 2016. Part of your budget is designed so that you can study these issues, and it's not acceptable for you to just come back and say, well, we don't have any new evidence, but we still think these products should be regulated because they're called cigars and they contain tobacco in them.
Right.
I think that's going to be an uphill battle, particularly after EPA.
Yeah, and that goes right in with what I mean. Skip used the term rule of law, and that's that you can't be forced to be put in a position where you have to prove a negative. The cigar industry doesn't have to prove child or youth use statistics. The FDA has to prove the cigar industry doesn't have to prove the lack of youth use statistics. The FDA has to prove their so-called evidence of youth use statistics, and they don't.
Yeah, but we do have an ethical obligation and also professional responsibility to not allow children to buy our products and to not market to them. And without getting into the whole cartoon, I don't think a lot of those things that people have been, the munchies or whatever, I don't think those things are targeted at children. I think if they're sold in, I think the fresh packs that are sold at the 7-Eleven are more likely to be consumed by children than the munchies in a retail tobacconist in Minnesota, right? So it's kind of where we place it, how we put the faith in our retail partners to keep it away from kids, for ourselves to keep on top of making products that don't have a lot of other things in it outside of naturally cured tobacco, and to try to be cognizant of the fact that we need to make sure we are not positioning our products in a place where that could swing that data that allows them to prove that children consume our products, right?
Yeah. I just want to refute one thing that Matthew said. We actually do have to prove the negative. The court system has been, when you challenge a claim that the regulators make about, a good example is warning labels and their effectiveness. The Supreme Court has said that, the warning labels that they use, the non-graphical warning labels, are not effective, and therefore, trying to increase the size in the U.S. has been something that the regulators have not been able to win. But that's because there's actual evidence that says that. But if there's no evidence on either side, or very little of it, the courts have generally let FDA, and the agencies before that, or the regulations before that, they've let them do it. That there's, from what I understand, I'm not an attorney, but there is a deference to the scientists when it comes to the science. And in this case, if Meta was forced to look at the data, it's not great. FDA's case is terrible, but that's not what he did. He said you had a 27-step process and you skipped step 23. Not, you don't have the evidence. Right. I don't think it's a good idea for the cigar industry to assume going forward that just because FDA doesn't have the evidence doesn't mean that a court wouldn't uphold it. I think it would be a lot more challenging given the current circumstance, but 3 years ago, I don't think that would have been a winning pathway. And in fact, we tried it, in this lawsuit, and it did not work.
Right.
No, and that's good. I appreciate that clarification. Definitely. John, what I know, you're up there in, what's it called? Canada. Yeah. I know, things are. You're in a different ball game up there because regulation is absolutely out of control and pricing is absolutely out of control. So,
Great deals on Cubans compared to the world market, though. So we got that going for us.
Yeah, because the government owns the market, just like alcohol and marijuana.
yeah. So what is the marketplace looking like? Is it dismal, or is there any ray of hope for your marketplace up there?
Well, I think, as far as Canada goes, and Abe kind of talked about this, is that the marketplace has basically created a situation in Canada in which if you're successful, what you do is a brick and mortar store, then you already do a number of things right just by the measure of the fact that you're still in business. So if you do, and unlike the United States, you really can't run a tobacco store here and do a bunch of things incorrectly. You can't even really do a number of things incorrectly, or you will simply be out of business. The profit margins are lower. The ability to smoke cigars indoor doesn't exist. The packaging has been created to be plain packaging. So, there's a number of things working against you. But that said, the retailers that have managed to weather the storm so far, from the ones that I've talked to, are actually posting double-digit growth. So they seem to be doing just fine in the market. And, we'll see how long it lasts before the next whatever regulation comes down. But for the time being, the ones that have managed to weather the storm by doing all the things right seem to be in business and happy to be doing business.
Yeah, but when the lions pick off the weakest in the herd, the rest of the herd eats better, right? But that doesn't mean that the future looks good for the herd, right?
No, and I
The
certainly didn't
lions
mean
are
to-
eventually
yeah.
going to come for you, right?
Yeah, I certainly didn't mean to position it as the future of tobacco in Canada looks positive, because I think in a long enough timeline, ultimately, whether it's 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, prohibition is almost certainly the outcome, whether it's prohibition by the measure of making products so expensive that it's simply unaffordable, and there's an entire gray market, black market, which technically already exists in Canada anyways. I think that's inevitable. And, that was always my fear for the United States, is that the moment you let the slightest crack open on any sort of regulation like this, it really never ends, because you're just fighting a continuing losing battle of the next regulation, which makes it that much more difficult to overturn. So back to sort of what Charlie was saying, this is all extremely positive news for the American market, and that's where I get my cigars. So.
Yeah.
I mean, so we had Canada distributors coming into us at the booth and saying, "Hey, will you sell product to
Right.
us?" And the answer was no. Why not? Because for a company our size and the amount of product you're going to be able to sell of our product, even if you sold it like crazy, we can only make so much.
Yep.
So it's not worth us creating a whole different set of packaging just for you. It's not worth us doing jumping through all the hurdles. And so the market then kind of just gets owned by the companies big enough to do that.
Right.
And then when only the companies that are big enough to do that become the market, then the dynamicism of the market starts to erode. Smooth smoker starts to erode. The market itself starts to erode. So then you have a demand problem from the bottom and a regulatory problem from the top, and then the industry just kind of dies, right? A slow, painful death. And so for us, for me, the FDA thing has been a lot more about how it revealed the internal fractures and divisions in our own industry, and how we weren't able to kind of rally around it in a way to fight the real, kind of battle. We couldn't agree on it. People started trying to draw lines in certain places to create competitive advantages. It became, who's relevant, who's not relevant, finger pointing, and then we ignore the real questions, and those are all kind of signs of an unhealthy industry. And so,
I mean, Skip, do you think we fixed that?
I don't think we fixed it. I think the threat has kind of gone away, and the fractures are still there. We just haven't addressed that problem. I mean, like, we talk about PCA this, PCA that. And this may be one of your topics, but at the end of the day, what it all boils down to is a trade show relevant, and can you get retailers there to buy cigars? Everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't help pointing fingers at people and saying, "Hey, you're not here to help us fight the fight," blah 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 blah. It's like let's solve the real root problem, and then it's all competing in an open, fair market, and so the regulatory environment is like that for me, and again, that's part of the reason why we've set our company up to be a certain size and not have to even fight a lot of those battles, because while we certainly draft off and we appreciate and we try to contribute as much as we can, it's just counterproductive for us to get dragged into those kinds of things.
Also,
That's
I
what
mean,
your
if you
Facebook
took
page
all
is
this,
for.
sorry, was that?
What, Charlie?
That's what Skip's Facebook page is for.
No, I don't. I try. Whatever.
I think if you took all the cigar smokers across Canada, I said this many times before, I doubt that it's even the total number of cigar smokers that exist in New Hampshire. So the Canadian market is really irrelevant.
I feel like I'm
Hey, but you
doing
got
an
that CEO
Instagram.
exclusive.
Mm.
I'm gonna
What'd
say
you
I feel like I'm doing an Instagram duet right now.
Well, so I have kind of a directly related retail question for Abe, and this is for everybody, but I want to start with Abe, because let's say the hammer finally drops on flavored cigars. I mean, from what I've heard from a lot of retailers, they sell a lot of infused and flavored products. What is that going to look like for you going forward if a year from now the hammer drops on flavored cigars and it's all over?
You asking me?
Yeah.
So I mean, look, I'm a retailer. I'm the last guy that the infused cigar guy's got to worry about it, because if they drop the hammer on flavored cigars, we sell other cigars. You sell what you sell. You sell what you can sell. And if you know what, if the whole cigar industry or cigars get shut down tomorrow, guess what? I sell my inventory and I find something else to do. Sal Fontana, one of the best mentors I ever had in my life, gave me the best advice one day. He says, moving heaven and earth won't change something. Why waste time worrying about it? Are flavored cigars a percentage of our business? Absolutely. If we lose it, does that mean those people won't convert to normal cigars? Some will, some won't. The ones that don't, and if it affects your bottom line that much, you find some ancillary other product to sell. That's what a good retailer does. You don't stop selling because something becomes unavailable to sell. Like the point John was trying to make earlier, or somebody was, I think it was Charlie, if you got no Cuban cigars in the European market, how could you be adverse to get whatever you can to sell? You get what you could sell. You're retail, you're in sales. So, me on a personal point, the way we run our company, it's not listen to me, don't want to see it happen. I think it's part of our industry. I think it's a quality product that a lot of people enjoy, but that happening is not the end of the world for my organization on a personal level. So, it does. We either pivot, we change, we find something to make up for any kind of look. There are things that happen across the time of any course of business where you've lost sales, either something has happened or whatever, and the savvy retailers find ways to pivot and win some market back, either in the same segment or an ancillary segment that's similar to yours.
Well, what a lot of people don't think about, Abe, is, and I don't even know if blondies are at risk, for example, but let's say Cuba, and Blondie, which are a big skew for a lot of retailers. If John and those guys are not buying the Seco and the kind of other kind of long filler stuff that they buy to make those millions of cigars, and there's no market for that. That makes the rest of the tobacco in the plant more expensive for the rest of us, which means the most premium of cigar consumers will see a cost and price increase just because flavors went away, regardless of what happens in the retail environment. That's what's happening on the supply side.
Right, and I'm not trying to be unsympathetic, but once again, a manufacturer problem.
Right.
As a retailer, we don't care about price increases. In fact,
it's a consumer problem, right?
Well, not always a consumer problem, and I'll explain to you why.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. As a retailer, price increase, all that means is the value of my company just went up because all the inventory I have just increased in value. As a consumer, when you're poised with a price increase, consumers are going to do one of two things. If they're really hard on the brand, they love the brand, it goes up, they're going to pay them more money for the brand, whether the manufacturer raises it 5, 10, or 15%, which means that same consumer now I'm generating more revenue on.
Right.
If the brand gets priced out of, I mean, it's just realistic retail here. I'm not sugarcoating anything. If the brand gets priced out of that consumer's price range and he's comfortable spending his $6.50, $7 a stick, and now his favorite cigar became $9, the consumer typically just finds another $7 stick and he's going to keep trying until he finds one he enjoys. Because
Right.
if you have people that are price driven, that's what they're going to do. If you have people that are brand driven, that's what they're going to do. So on a retail level, it's not that impactful to us as it is to you guys on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean what you're saying is that just because my costs go up 30% doesn't mean I can just automatically increase my price 30% and expect people to buy the same number of cigars.
It won't happen. That's right.
Right.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that your people will smoke less cigars.
Right. But it may take some manufacturers or some brands out of the market.
It may.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that happened recently kind of made me start thinking about how this particular type of event in the cigar industry affects consumers and retailers. So Room 101 cigar brands sells to STG. And then I thought about, back in 2014 or 15 when Drew Estate sold to Swisher International. And then if you go way back when CAO sold to General Cigar, what are the pros and cons for consumers and retailers when sales, and I realize there's differences in scale, between Room 101 selling and Drew Estate selling, but what are the pros and cons for consumers and retailers when acquisitions like this happen? Charlie, let's start with you.
I mean, it depends. If you were a fan of Terrano,
Yeah, Terrano's another good
you got
example.
some great cigars on discount for a little while, and now they basically don't exist. So that's
Belmont.
one option. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like, I just don't. The thing with Room 101 that's interesting is that because of the end of the Davidoff relationship, which was how most of Room 101's history in the cigar world was, whereas Room 101 was not owned by Davidoff but was manufactured and sold by Davidoff in the U.S. and around the world. And then they Matt quote unquote retired, and then 7 months later was back with more or less all new lines, new distribution, new manufacturing partners. Like, we've kind of already seen a Room 101 1.0, Room 101 2.0, and now this might be Room 101 3.0. But I just don't know, because I also am not, I'm not sure that I really understand Room 101 2.0, so the most recent chapter. I'm not sure where exactly they were in the marketplace. And yeah, if General's past is any indication, I suspect that there will be a big push. And if it's worth General's time, and this sort of gets back to that Sancho Panza conversation from earlier, General sells a lot of cigars, probably more than anyone else, and they have a lot of brands, and they have plenty of capital to invest in any of those brands if they want to reinvent Sancho Panza or if they want to reinvent Macanudo. And as such, it's just not good enough just to be profitable. They need to make sure it's worth their time, and I think that's an uphill battle for Sancho Panza, Terrano before it, and certainly for Room 101 going forward. But I think the most likely thing for consumers is you're going to see, at least for the short term, and if it's successful for the long term, you're going to see a lot more of these Sancho Panza-like rebrands. Matt's creativity and his sort of style, I think, is going to become prominent on a number of General Cigar sold labels, and we'll see how that goes. But as far as what it means for Room 101, I mean, I suspect that it's not going to surprise me if we come to learn that, some of the cigars continue to be made the same way, and some of them, maybe General says, hey, look, we need to take a different approach. So different blends, different factories, et cetera. That would not be surprising. I don't know of any of those plans, but, given their history and sort of the basic facts of the company, that would seem like that's probably on the horizon. The last thing I'll say, because I think Abe's probably the next person that should talk about this, because he knows more about Room 101 sales than I do.
Flipping to you, Abe.
The only other thing I'd say is, I think you should probably expect there's going to be some Room 101 private labels showing up at Cigars International, and their partners, Thompson, Cigar Bit, etc. Because if I was running SCG and we just acquired Room 101, that's something I would certainly do, and they've certainly done that before.
Abe, what do you think?
Well, look, I think there's a different scenario than a lot of the other prior ones that have occurred, and the fact that for General, can I say it like this? Probably. I think they've acquired their first personality, right? I mean, is Rick Rodriguez, was he a personality? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If you looked at the room, I mean, Charlie, you saw it yourself. If you looked at the Room 101 booth, it was one of the more happening booths at the trade show this year.
I mean, stripper pole, cash machine, talk about penises. What is there not there to
Matt
appeal?
Booth. Well, that's Matt Booth.
Glory hole. Yeah.
That's Matt Booth. It's always been Matt Booth. I think Matt Booth has been has been chugging along in this industry, being himself, developing some kind of following of people who love what he does and love what he represents. But I think Matt never really had a decent infrastructure nor backing, because there are certain aspects of his industry, and just as someone who knows Matt personally, and he doesn't really want to deal with. I think those aspects are going to come from this new partnership, and I'm not sure if you'll see Room 101 CI branded stuff immediately. General, with their development of Forged and the two different companies and how they're working, I think they might be a little bit more leery to make the moves of what basically ends up being a brand killer. When they immediately acquire something, when they make moves like that, because then it just gets tossed out almost every retail door. So I don't know if historically that model, or they might jump down that same road again with Room 101. I do think that good things may come out of this. I think good things for both parties. I think there's a symbiotic relationship there that could be beneficial for both those parties involved there. So and this industry is weird, because I was overseas when this all went down, and then I didn't really have a chance to read a lot about it, but I saw some people were upset, felt like he sold out, which was something I could just never understand, why consumers get so hell bent on this, because I mean, look, most of us are working for an end game to be acquired, some kind of acquisition, and this guy didn't do that. I think he just positioned himself where he kind of can do more of what he loves to do, and then have the structure and the backing to maybe even do what he likes to do even better. So and at the end of the day, the guy's got kids, he's got a wife, he's got to feed his family. So anybody who criticizes that just has no real world perspective. And then the other thing is, I think there was the same crying when Drew Estate sold. And look at Drew Estate today; they got the hardest following of anybody. People forget, it's all malarkey, emotion in the moment. Every time I have a store manager who the clients all love, but they don't see anything behind the curtain, they don't realize how awful they really are as employees, and you replace them, there's always that oh my god, how did you get rid of that guy? And literally 2 months later, nobody remembers that guy's name, because the new guy's actually doing his job and he's real good. So it's hard to listen to what the consumers will cry about in the moment, but I think this may end up being a good thing for Matt Booth and Forge General, whichever division he ends up making cigars with.
Abe, you made a great point about Drew Estate. I still, to this day, I will never forget, I was in a cigar shop in the Twin Cities area the day after the acquisition was announced that Swisher International was buying Drew Estate. And the very next day, some guy walks out of the humidor, and we're sitting down, we're smoking, and he's saying, man, these League of Nines just don't taste the same since Swisher bought Drew. I was like, that's the same fucking box of cigars that's been on the shelf for 2 weeks that was shipped from the Yeah, social media is going to.
Yeah, but what happened is they acquired the undertones of betrayal,
Yeah.
Right?
which is a bitter. Look, it's like Abe said before. Is there's people that have an emotional connection with a brand
Right,
that supersedes the price thing, and of course they're going to be emotionally affected. I mean, Matt at his heart, all his shenanigans aside, Matt is a solid dude. Right. I
Absolutely.
mean, and I've known him for, on the edge and also a little bit personally for 12 years. He's a solid dude. He made this decision. It was his decision to make. And I hope it works out well for him personally and financially. I don't give a fuck how it helps STG one way or the other, but I hope Matt squeezes every drop of it out of it he can and walks away the winner. To Abe's point, I think Davidoff had that structure. You can't argue that Christian with Camacho or Davidoff later or whoever didn't have the structure to do for Room 101 what Scandinavia has. I can tell you this, that acquisitions, mergers, companies going out of business, companies starting up, those are all signs of a functioning market and a functioning industry. Where I get worried is like where Abe said, where stores that really suck don't go out of business, where brands aren't starting up, where people aren't investing money in new stores, where really good brands aren't being bought at great multiples by other companies that can benefit and accelerate them. So I think acquisitions are a sign, once again, of a functioning market. And so to me, that's a healthy sign for the industry, just like a new brand coming out. Some of the best ones succeeding and the ones that aren't doing it, failing, that's a sign of a functioning market. And I like seeing that because I'm a part of a market that's alive and is working. What I'll tell you from personal experience is no one out there right now is buying companies unless they're getting them at a discount. And so, people who are selling companies, there's a lot of companies on the block. There's people who want to exit the business. They're trying to cash out and get out. And they're kind of saying, is this enough? And the company's trying to buy them or trying to pay as little as possible. I'm sure what they tied Matt into is, hey, we're going to buy you for X, which is not a great price, but it doesn't suck. We want you to come work for us. And we want you to bring value. And if you bring value and you grow our business and your business, then you'll get the other half of this package. But if not, you're not going to get it. And I hope that works out for Matt. I couldn't last 2 weeks at Scandinavia, to be honest with you, personally. But overall, it's a healthy sign of a functioning market when these kind of, the thing falls from the tree, it erodes on the ground, it creates bacteria that creates a new thing, which grows a new tree. That's all part of the cycle. It's supposed to work, and it seems to be working better. Now that the FDA shadow is off of us, it's good to see these things happening again.
I just want to make one comment about that. One, really, there's no reason to even assume what kind of deal Matt got. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
It is, because he accepted whatever it was.
I hope he gets a great deal. But the difference between Davidoff and SGD was Room 101 was in a distribution deal with Camacho when Camacho got acquired. It wasn't a relationship that festered between Davidoff and Room 101. It was just kind of, all right, it came along with the deal.
True.
And there really wasn't that. I know some of the trials and tribulations that Matt had. There wasn't really that, okay, this is a guy we want to work with. This is a guy we need to help grow. This is where I think that is how STG has gone into this deal, where they really hope that something develops there. And I think they're going to put more of a focused and concerned effort in working with Matt.
Yeah, I mean the one thing I'd add for
there's no evidence that they've ever done that before, but let's hope that that's the case. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but
yeah, but I agree.
I mean,
with
Sam
that
was saying it lasted what, 2 weeks?
Like I agree, that's a concern. If SCG, I think more so than most, enjoys throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. On the flip side, though, like I started writing about cigars right when the CAO is coming to an end and going out of business because it was being merged into the general cigar portfolio. And despite what the Crown Heads booth may want to argue, like General's done a fantastic job with CAO. It's not the same company as it was. It wasn't going to be that, but I bet Abe's doing a pretty decent job selling CAOs and is making a good money, selling those cigars. And they've had some real bona fide hits with Amazon Basin. They've
have.
made some cult cigars that would have been astonishing to people that were, reading Stogie Review in 2010 and not just Stogie Review and other sites.
I mean,
And that's in spite of not having anyone from the family or the original organization.
Yeah, but the flip side of this, I think on the positive, you need to find a bright spot. It's everything you liked about Matt Booth at Room 101, that's coming to General. So, maybe Room 101 doesn't follow the pathway that a consumer wants it to, but maybe you really like that new Sancho Panza that Skip's going to refuse to buy. And I don't think that's going to be the last cigar that Booth works on. And so, perhaps we see better cigars, throughout the General portfolio that Matt has a hand in playing. And I don't think that's something that should be overlooked. But,
Justin
I share those
Andrews
concerns that Skip had.
Yeah, Justin Andrews came from Lou Rodriguez, right? And he had that real experience with boutique and with what that means, what those consumers want, what he wants to accomplish. And he's had to kind of color within the lines to a certain extent. And but for the most part, the most exciting thing that they're doing over there to me is the stuff that Justin touches, right? So hopefully that extends to Matt and that becomes the most exciting stuff as well. And so, look, again, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of customers. All the customers, the better job that Scandinavia does, the better job for our industry, the better the better it is for me. And so I don't wish anyone, any kind of ill or whatever. I want the industry itself to function better. And for what it's worth coming from me, if I drink X craft beer and X craft beer gets bought by Anheuser, I'm more concerned about how they integrate it and what they do with it than I am the fact of who owns it. And so I'm happy for Matt. I hope he comes out with a crazy. I hope he does what Justin does even better. And so I want them to succeed, and I want to build more cigar smokers, and I want a healthier industry.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's exciting, and I think in the end, it's if STG bringing in Matt Booth thought that if they have any inclinations that this is the kind of personality, the kind of person that they can put a leash on and
right.
they got the wrong idea. And Justin really
go buy Caldwell. See how that that you're gonna get the same thing. So just know what you're getting, right? You're exactly right.
And Justin really knows Matt, and I think Justin knows what I think I really do believe that this particular acquisition. Although I'm not saying it's been done better or worse than others in the past, I'm saying I think this one really has teeth, and I think it's exciting. So for all parties involved, I think it has great potential. So let's jump into, I think I'm just checking my questions here. I don't have anything else for the regular segment of the show.
Oh,
so
I got a question. John, how drunk are you now that we're halfway through the show?
He's not.
I honestly don't know why everyone thinks I'm drunk. I really would welcome you to attend a vertical whiskey tasting at any point. And
Cigar Hustler has a soundbite of John. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, that was.
I love that. I love that.
I thought that was pretty entertaining. It's nice. It's nice to be reduced to a soundbite after 10 years in the industry.
I love that. I love it.
Abe's turning me into a meme.
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna dig that up, Charlie. Oh, great.
All right, so it is time for this week's Numero de los Muertos. And as always, Numero de los Muertos brought to us by our friends at Smoke Inn.
Oh.
Got some After Effects on there. It's very fancy. Very fancy.
So I had to come up with this Numero de los Muertos on the fly, very last minute, because Garrett texted us at, I don't know, a few minutes before the show. He's like, I'm puking my guts out. I ate a gas station cheeseburger. I made a bad choice, so I can't be on the show.
Better be good.
So I had to come up with this literally like sort of during the show. So I went digging around and found what I believe to be reliable data, because we know everything on the internet's true. So, but it looks like a very reliable source. So, as always, viewers, if you guys are on Facebook and YouTube watching live, you can guess along with our guests in the comments. The number is 1,250, and that is 2017 through 2021 in the United States. 1,250 people died from this.
Wait, what was the first number you gave us?
1,250. 1,250 people since between.
That's over a 5-year period, not annually.
Correct. Total between 2017 and 2021, 1,250 people in the United States died from this.
So about 250 people a year, roughly. Average.
Yeah. Although the numbers weren't, the numbers were slightly skewed, but that's the total that I could have gone back further, but we were in the middle of a show and I didn't want to be on my phone. So. Is it botulism? No, Garrett, that's what you're about to die from. And
is it a job-related death?
It is. No.
Is it disease or accident?
Not disease. Would most likely be classified as accident, I think.
Is Florida as a state a massive outlier for the for where this occurs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right.
No, Q. Sex toys are not involved, you freaking weirdo.
Is it drug related?
It is not drug related.
Does it affect?
Do you have to ingest something?
It does not involve ingesting anything.
Does it affect men more than women, or roughly the same?
I don't have stats on that. My guess is roughly the same.
It's not job related.
Animals, machinery, or natural phenomenon?
Machinery. Yeah, I'll say machinery is involved.
Does it involve losing a body part?
Possibly, but I don't really. There's no specifics on that. It's just.
Is it number of people that are killed on table saws?
Nope, not table saws.
Is it any kind of tools? Tools?
Tools are not involved. No, Jason. It is not motorcycles.
Hold on. So tools are not involved, but machinery is.
Yeah. Could be like a
yeah.
dump truck.
Yeah.
Dump truck, cement pour.
Is it related to one particular segment, like farming?
It is relegated to one particular segment. It is not farming.
Which member of the YMCA, the Village People, is most likely to die of this?
The cop. Definitely the cop.
Okay.
Is it number of police officers that die from heat exposure while on the job?
No.
Okay.
Does it involve temperature?
No. Steve Newman says more than 1,250 non-self-defense.
See, John's on the right trend of trying to apply it back to what's in the news.
No, Steve, it is not related to firearms or concealed carry. No.
Is it people run over by their own vehicles?
No. And it's not
Does it involve
drowning.
a vehicle?
Vehicles are involved.
Vehicles are involved.
Does it involve a motorcycle? Not inherently is the answer.
Not inherently.
Interesting.
It could. It is not
Could.
forestry accidents. It is not wood turn.
It's not a sporting
Is it-
event, is it?
It is not a sporting event.
Is it people getting hit on the side of the road?
No.
People turning their car on while in the garage.
No. Somebody earlier said traffic stop accidents. Not exactly. Daniel, not exactly, but you're approaching the right ballpark.
Does the car need to be moving, or the vehicle need to be moving?
Not necessarily. It's not forklifts.
Number of
Killed-
people that. Just go ahead.
Killed during traffic stops?
No.
You gotta give us dark.
What's that?
Jay.
Can we use a lifeline? Do a 50-50
Is
or a
that
phone a
placing
friend?
your testicles on the cold floor? We've already said vehicles.
Vehicles are involved, but not specifically motorcycles.
Correct.
Number of people that
And the
lock
vehicle doesn't
themselves
do
in their own
moving.
trunks.
No.
Deaths during driving classes?
No. And remember the hint. There's a big hint that one of the guesses from our commenters, our viewers, was it traffic stops or traffic at intersection? It's a particular type of intersection.
Crosswalks?
Suicide circles?
No,
Crosswalks would be too low because
U-turns?
the number of pedestrians would be in the tens of thousands.
not U-turns, not roundabouts, or suicide
But the car-
circles as you
The
call
car
them.
doesn't need to be moving.
It doesn't have to be, but it can be in some
Does
cases.
another vehicle need to be moving?
Yes.
People struck on the side of the road while pulled over
was already
for a traffic
guessed.
stop?
One of the vehicles is not a car or truck or motorcycle.
It's
I
involving
mean, number of
ATV?
people hitting farm truck or farm tractors on the side of the road.
We have a winner. We have a correct guess.
Nice.
Risty
Wait, I would have totally. Okay, running a red light. No.
trains. So people killed at train crossings.
Train crossings.
Trying to get around the, those signal arms that come down. People trying to sneak through before the train comes.
Trains are actually undefeated, believe it or not, the last 250 years.
That is true. Yeah. So just the numbers were. I mean, they have records going back a very long time, but just from 2017 through 2021, 1,250 people a year in the United States alone died trying to beat a train crossing.
I'll be honest, that seems really low. Given having driven in the United States and seeing how Americans drive, that
Hey,
seems
fuck
really
you.
low. I would expect that to be higher.
Through an hour with John without an anti-American sentiment.
Got to keep it real, Skip. Got to keep people engaged. They're if they're angry, they're engaged.
I wish I had the soundbite of that song from Team America right now.
Fuck you, Ka.
Yeah.
All right, so that was this week's Numero de los Muertos. All right, so let's jump into
Sponsored by Smoke In.
sponsored by Smoke In.
Thank you.
Yeah, Abe, so
Let's
if you
jump
didn't enjoy
into the
that
lightning
segment,
round,
just
brought to you by J.C. Newman Cigar Company,
You-
America's oldest family-owned
Paid
premium
for.
cigar maker. Creators of the popular Brick House, Perla Del Mar, Diamond Crown, and the American. J.C. Newman Cigar Company operates out of their 112-year-old El Reloj Cigar Factory in historic Cigar City, Tampa, Florida. For more information on their cigars or their visitor experience, please visit jcnewman.com. All right, sorry, Skip, you can go ahead now. I know you were trying to say something.
I was just saying, if Abe didn't enjoy that segment, he just know that he paid for it.
So the lightning round normally consists of multiple questions, but we have a lot of guests, and so we don't want to keep everybody all night. And since a couple of our guests are on a short break, I'm going to start with Skip on this question. So if you could have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, you cannot say money, cigars, or time. You could have an unlimited supply of one thing. What would it be?
Clean drinking water.
Oh,
That
thinking
is
about the future.
That is a fantastic answer. Very, very prepper answer right there. But no, very, very good answer.
If you think oil is an issue right now, wait till water.
Oh, yeah,
Peak water, baby, it's coming.
yeah. So John, if you could have an unlimited supply for the rest of your life of one thing, what would it be?
For me, I think it'd probably be flight credits, like airline points, so I could just fly wherever I want, first class at any point, unlimited.
That's I think, I'm trying to remember who exactly, but somebody I think said that same answer once. But I agree, that's a good one. So Charlie, if you could have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, you can't say money, cigars, or time, but an unlimited supply of one thing, what would it be?
I mean, I'd love to be able
Conditioner.
to eat and drink without repercussion.
Oh, so
Like calories.
calorie-free food?
I mean, I don't want to eat calorie-free food, but like,
that still tastes just as good as real food.
Yeah, if my Whoop strap says like, "Hey, you need to eat more," like that'd be great. Just always said that.
Olestra without the side effects.
Yeah, Olestra without the Dumb and Dumber moment at the end. Well, I want to ask Abe this
I
question,
would have
but
thought Charlie would have said. I would have thought Charlie was going to say hair conditioner.
Is that after water? So it's oil, water, and then conditioner wars?
Yeah.
I mean, if you
It's
got
a
the
petroleum
golden
product, I
mane,
suppose.
Well, Abe is just going to have to miss out on this question. So let's move into our notable smokable for the week. And as always, notable smokables brought to us by our friends at Ace Prime. Notable cigars, notable passion, notable purpose. So you guys remember the drill with this. Each week we name a cigar that we smoked recently that was notable to us. It could be a cigar that's been on the market for decades that we revisited for the first time in a long time, or a cigar that's brand new that we tried for the first time ever. So Abe, since you're back on, I'm going to ask you, what was something you smoked very recently that was notable to you? Oh, little plug.
Pretty much. Smoked about 3 or 4 yesterday, so that's it. That's my pick. Pope 2022 goes on sale tomorrow. Plug.
Love it. John, what
always
about
be
you?
selling.
Always be
Always
closing.
be selling.
I'm making my way through some of the stuff from the show. So I smoked the Olmec beginning of the week, Sunday, and I thought that was quite good. Other than that, I'd go with the Homer answer, which is the Neanderthal, because and I know it's a Homer answer because Skip's on the show, but honestly, it's quite challenging for me to get Romacraft up here. So when I can beg, borrow, and steal to get them sent to Loomis, it's always a pretty good treat for me.
Yeah. Skip, what about
Thank
you?
you, John.
You got it, brother.
I smoked 2 cigars at the show that I really liked. I smoked a number that I didn't like. The 2 that I really liked, one I smoked going into the show knowing that it was going to be really good because I kind of saw it from average to great, was a Maria Lucia from
Ooh,
Luciana.
I like that one too. Actually. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just
And the
confirming.
second
I
one
like
is
of my
what Bear
favorites.
Duplessis,
Sorry.
yeah, what Bear Duplessis calls the agape, the agape from the agape from Eladio Diaz. I'm really excited to see what Eladio is going to do. He's one of my favorite. Charlie knows he's one of my favorite tobacco guys. He's one of the 5 people I think are a real legitimate master.
Yeah.
And so that agape, I don't know. There was maybe some kind of controversy behind it or whatever. Everyone's really different and good, and it did. You could never convinced me that was Dominican cigar, and they say to smoke more of those.
Yeah, I remember I was listening to Cigar Hustler a few weeks ago, and Palmer was reading that cigar, and he called it the agape, and I almost had to pull over. I was laughing so hard. I told them that when they were on the show last
maybe it was Palmer, maybe I misattributed. Yeah, maybe I misattributed it. Yeah, I think it was Palmer, not Bear. Sorry, Bear.
Charlie, what about you? What's something notable you smoked recently?
I mean, I'll do the homer answer too. I smoked. I mean, cellophane doesn't really tell much of a story, but you know, a fairly old Cro-Magnon. I smoked the Jaime Garcia Reserva Corojo, Jaime Garcia Reserva Especial Corojo out of the CRA sampler. It's a potential new My Father blend. Review comes out tomorrow. Very, very different cigar than what I'm used to, particularly for Nicaraguan puros from the Garcias. So, good cigar, and like I said, I mean, you know, I think My Father has a fairly well-established profile that is well outside of it.
Yeah. Justin, do you have a notable this week?
Yeah, actually, I had that Room 101 Namakubi Limited 2021.
Oh yeah, the purple one. We bought those while we were at.
That's Smoke In. It's a great smoke.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was a good one. I finally smoked it, so it's good.
Nice cigar. Mine was a show sample actually, which show samples are hit or miss, regardless, honestly, of who they come from, because Vegas is weird and shipping and all that stuff. But the Veracruz Blue from Tatuaje, I was really kind of happy about that cigar. I've only smoked the one show sample, so I'm going to buy more at a local shop and you know, try them from the, you know, a retail box. But I was really happy with that blend. I thought it was very nice.
I smoked it as well watching F1. I thought it was quite good.
I've heard that from another one that was really good that I smoked at the show was a small
content.
like.
Should I just pretend to be Skip?
By 40. It was from the German engineering company. That was really good as well.
Sorry, Skip, your mic and stuff is
I don't know
going
whether
in and
made
out.
or anything, but it was good. No, I was saying that the German precision
Oh, you made him repeat everything.
engineering company or whatever, they make these.
Precision engineering with the sound here.
Yeah, sorry, the sound and cameras going in and out.
I tell you what, though, I don't know if it was me with the trade show this year. Maybe I was more attentive. Maybe wasn't been paying attention much in the last few years. But I could literally open up a brand new store and fill it up with every brand I never heard of.
Yeah, I saw. I won't say I saw more new on this show floor than I've seen on any other show floor, but I was very surprised in 2022 to see as many brands as I had never heard of.
Oh, I didn't say it's bad. I'm just in shock.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, but I was not expecting that many, and not new brands. I mean, they're brands that have been selling cigars, you know, maybe for
I mean, it's good though. It's good though, right, Abe?
I think so.
So Abe,
Skip, you're not coming in at all, buddy.
Do you carry
Skip,
Placencia?
if you can hear us,
Okay, can you hear
you're
me?
not coming in at all. We hear like every 10th word.
And on like a 15-second delay. It's great.
Yeah, and then he keeps talking like it's
I can hear
better.
you.
It's not any better.
Yeah, on his end it works fine, but we're seeing all kinds of.
I caught Placencia, so that
I caught Placencia.
That's
yeah,
about the
Abe, do
only
you
thing
carry
we've heard.
Placencia?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've had Placencia for a long time. I don't know what the rest of that question is, but
if you can hear me, almost everything they're doing. If you can hear me, almost everything they're doing is really good, and the white label stuff, everything I smoke from them is great.
another
that's
another
one.
jumping, never empty booth at the trade show this year.
Yeah,
you couldn't get 2 steps in the
we
booth.
couldn't even get to them, and I agree that, I mean, honestly, whether it's the, you know, the cosecha or, you know, 146 or the Alma del Campo, or I've enjoyed pretty much everything, from the stuff they've been putting out. Definitely. So let's hear about our coming attractions on the show. And we are bringing those to you from our friends at AJ Fernandez. They now produce unparalleled premium cigars in Esteli, Nicaragua. The day-to-day operations at Tabacalera AJ Fernandez are managed under the watchful eye of Mr. Fernandez himself in order to ensure superior quality. The AJ Fernandez portfolio of premium cigars provides a blend, strength, and flavor profile to match the preferences of any premium cigar consumer, whether it's New World, Dias de Gloria, San Latano, Enclave, or Bellas Artes. You are sure to be satisfied with a premium cigar from AJ Fernandez. So to let you guys know, next week on the show, that is August 1st, we are already coming up into the month of August, and we are going to have, returning to the show, we're going to have Eric Bay from Black Star Line Cigars back on How About That Cigar Live. So very excited to talk to him again. So John, I'm going to start with you. Where is the best place for viewers and listeners to keep up with everything you have going on?
Developing Palettes, developingpalettes.com, Developing Palettes YouTube channel, Developing Palettes Instagram. Just search for Developing Palettes. You can find our stuff. Look for the reviews that are over 10 minutes if you want to be entertained. Look for the reviews under 10 minutes if you want to find the good stuff.
Abe, where's the best place for viewers to find out?
I don't know, but it wasn't me. It was John, like having the bubble eye effect.
Yeah, it was the green screen.
It was great.
Psychedelic. It was awesome.
Also, I'm not sure now, after this episode of How About That Cigar, whether there were more new cigar vendors at the trade show this year or more cigar sponsors in one broadcast that I've ever seen on a show. So very well done.
Wait, you've been on Coop Show before, right?
Very, very well. I'm just busting balls.
I'm just messing with you.
Listen, follow Smoke In, Facebook, Instagram, social media. But if you really want to get some in-depth fun in what we do and a lot of cool things we do as far as giveaway and prizes and special drops, we got a private group on Facebook, Smoke In Socialites. Check it out. It's a really fun and a great place to be.
Charlie, where's the best place for everyone to find you guys?
Halfwheel.com, Halfwheel everywhere else. I'm sorry that you guys didn't win the Drew Estate contest, but maybe you'll get some shit eventually.
They need it.
We need it. Skip, how about for you guys, Rowan Craft? Uh-oh.
This could be my favorite broadcast ever with Skip Martin.
Sadly, the connection's just going wonky on us. Well, I want to thank everybody for being on the show tonight. This is
Hold on, don't we have like another hour?
We normally do, but it's like, don't make any big sudden movements. No, this has become one of my favorite shows of the year to do, to sit down with you guys and talk about the cigar world. I learn a lot from each and every one of you, and I know our viewers do as well. So it really means a lot to you guys. And Skip, of course, I mean, dude, it's your birthday and you're here on the show with us. So that truly means a lot. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Happy birthday, Skip.
Cheers.
This is so painful for Skip.
I know it's.
Oh, he's dying right now.
Connection's just falling
Thank you,
apart.
Abe. I wish I could. I was.
So for all our viewers and listeners, guys, thank you so much for spending time with us live on Facebook and YouTube tonight. We appreciate it so much. If you guys have questions, please email us directly on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Follow us on all social media at HBT Cigar. If you guys want to check out our PCA trade show coverage, you can find that on our website and our YouTube page. So be sure when you're on YouTube, click that beautiful red subscribe button. We would appreciate that so very much. And of course, guys, until we see you next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.